Welcome back to part 2 of the 5 drumming basics. Today in this video we're going to be actually playing the kit and I'm going to be showing you some examples of how to get started on a drum kit. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. For anyone that's new here, my name's Owen Ellick and on this channel I do everything drum related, so if that sounds like something that you're interested in, I really do hope to be able to earn your subscription today. So if you haven't seen part 1, I highly recommend going and checking that out first and then coming back to this one. Today I'm actually going to be showing you some real life applications for the drum kit, something that you can go and try out yourself right now. You don't necessarily actually have to have a drum kit with you. You can tap these out on your legs or on a surface or something like that, anything that you can find lying around in your house. Now for this first example, I did a short on this a little while ago. It actually did pretty well. I'll link it up in the YouTube cards here, but essentially it was how to play drums in under a minute. So I'll just quickly go over that with you guys now. Essentially what you're going to be doing is just keeping a straight 4 click on the hi-hat, so it's just. Then when you hear the 1, you're going to hit the kick drum. Then when you hear 3, you're going to hit the snare. This is essentially your entire foundation for everything that's going to come after that, because almost every single beat that you've ever heard in your entire life comes from that. This is your meat and potatoes. So for number 2, we're essentially just going to take the same beat and then spice it up a little bit by adding some kick adaptations and elaborations. So whereas before we had the kick drum just on the 1, we're now going to put it on the 1 and 4, like so. Next, we're going to change it up and just have it on the 1 and 2, like so. The reason why it's important to be able to move the kick around pretty much wherever you want is so that it's creating independence between your limbs. This will allow for you to change up beats either on the spot or for different songs depending on what the application is. So it might be for the first beat, you want to put it on the 1 and 4, and then for the next bar, you want to put it on the 1 and 2. Like this. So there we had an example of 1 and 4, then 1 and 2, then 1 and 4, then 1 and 2. From there, you can adapt it to wherever you want. You can start adding in 8th notes, something like this. This is essentially just dividing up the note values that are already there and then adding in 8th notes or 16th notes if you wanted to, if you could play that fast, and then changing it up so it just sounds a bit different. But again, all of this comes from that starting beat. Next, we're going to move on to a slightly different time signature. So whereas before we were playing 4 over 4, now we're going to be playing 6. This creates a very different feel. It's more of a swinging, swaying kind of motion, just like this. An important thing to remember here is that the kick drum is still on the 1, but the snare has now moved to 4. Because there's a different note value by the end of it, we have to shift over the snare in order to keep the flow going. But as I mentioned before, we can then add in the kick adaptations and elaborations so that we can change the beat slightly but keep the same feel, like so. So next we're going to move on to fills. It's really nice to just be able to sit back and kind of do a 4/4 straight AC/DC beat. But every now and again, you're going to want to add in something that's a little bit different, something that's going to take you from one section into another. Usually for these parts we use fills, like so. So the fill that I did there was a generic single stroke roll around the kit. Now because I was playing in 4/4, what I did around the kit, I used 4 drums and I used 4 strokes on each of them. So it's... So if we're counting this as 1 bar, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we may want 2 of those into the fill, or we may want 6 of those into one fill. So it'd be essentially this is essentially so that you are dividing everything that you're doing into 4s. So if we said that one of those beats that we did before was 1 bar, depending on the length of the verse, say for instance, that you're playing, then you're going to want to allow for the actual time of the fill. So as I showed you in that example, I did 6 of the beat and then I did the fill, which actually ended up being 2 bars. If, however, I wanted the fill to just be 1 bar, I would shorten it to something like this. So essentially, all you need to do is just decide how long you want that fill to be and then be able to fit it in between playing the beat and then do the fill into the next part, making sure that it's all perfectly in time. I'll just show you a couple more examples of fills. So like I said before, we have the single stroke roll. Next, we have a very popular one that's used in all different types of music. I'm not really too sure who's coined it, but it's a very popular one nonetheless. So essentially for this one, it's a lot easier to play because there's less notes. So you're just going. Another quite popular one is something even more simple, but we're going to incorporate the kick drum into this fill. So let me show you how that sounds. So this one's dead simple to do. You're going to hit the snare first. You can hit it with the flam, but you don't have to. Then it's a kick drum. Then the toms, again, flam if you want to, you don't have to. And then kick drum again. And then back into the groove that you're doing. One of the things I'd like to mention about the single stroke roll that we did at the beginning there is that you don't need to just go around the kit like I did. You can vary it up however you want. So, for example, the standard one that we did was, you can change it up to anything you want. So it could be, or you don't have to start with the snare, you don't have to start with the toms, you can change out which combination of drums you want, it's entirely up to you. And then for the last tip, we're going to put it all together. It's okay playing things individually, and I would highly recommend doing that. Play things individually in the beginning, but then you're going to want to start stitching it all together, just like this. It's also very possible and highly recommended to change up the time signature. Go from the 4/4 into the 6/8 and see if you can train your body to be able to change time signatures, like this. Now, as a bonus tip, one of the things that I want you guys to work on is tightness, how tight that you are playing around the kit. Now, it's dead easy to start playing and things to sound okay, but not good enough, because you might start flamming things, so like the hi-hat and the snare. Instead of it being perfectly together like this, it starts sounding a little bit more off, like they're not together, they're not tight. Same with the kick drum, you want it to sound like this, instead of it being where things aren't aligning. So when it comes to playing that very simple foundation beat, you want to make sure everything is lining up absolutely perfect, like this. It takes a lot of work and a lot of practice to be able to get that super tight so that nothing's flamming, everything lines up absolutely perfect. Some people will say that if everything's lining up, it sounds robotic and it has no feel. And to an extent, I agree, but you really need to be able to play everything as tight as possible before you're able to start moving things around and start having that feel and that judgment as to how things need to be, whether it's something supposed to be dragging or something supposed to be rushing. Have the foundation first before you start messing with it. But that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys have got something out of it. If you have, please let me know in the comment sections below, and please do consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. Thank you once again, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.